My name is Hannah Rothschild, and I've written a book called The Baroness, The Search for Nika, the Rebellious Rothschild. My great-aunt Nika was born in 1913 into the Rothschild family at its zenith, if you like, when it was at its most powerful. She was expected to do what every other young Rothschild did, which was to get married, have babies, live happily ever after. And things didn't quite work out that way. She did get married and she had 5 children, but the war, the Second World War, came along. And that, of course, changed everything and everybody. And when she started hearing about what had happened to her close relations, a lot of them, for example, died in the Holocaust, she then thought, I can't just sit at home and, knit bed socks or, look after the children. She wanted an active role. So she got on a plane to Africa and she joined the Free French. And when she came back from the war, it was impossible for her to settle down to a life of normalcy and domesticity. And of course, she'd been without her children throughout the war, so she was really kind of distanced from the role of motherhood. And I think it was an accident waiting to happen. But the way she tells the story is extraordinary. She says that she went to see a friend, and the friend said to her, have you ever heard a record by Thelonious Monk? And she said, well, I've never heard of Thelonious Monk. And the guy put the record on the turntable. And for her, it was like a vinyl version of a spell being cast. And it quite literally spirited her from one world to another. So she arrives in New York in the early 1950s, and although she can't meet Thelonious Monk because he'd lost his cabaret card and the right to play, what she can do is meet everyone else, because at that time all the jazz musicians were playing on 52nd Street. And in one night you'd hear Art Tatum, Charlie Parker, the whole lot. They were all there, Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie. And she bought herself a very, very grand white Rolls Royce. And she had a cigarette holder that was about 150 feet long and a coat made out of ocelot fur. And she became known, therefore, as the Jazz Baroness. So eventually, ironically, she had to fly from New York back to Europe to meet Thelonious Monk because he was allowed to play there. And once they met, they were inseparable, and they were together for 30 years. Of course, lots of people imagine that the relationship must have been sexual, the relationship with my great-aunt and Thelonious. And I tried to find, evidence that it was, a steamy, passionate relationship. But actually, I don't believe it was. I think that what kept them together was a love of music, particularly his music, might I add. And a real sense of companionship and friendship.